Today we're going to continue our leadership skills development. We have learned about Nehemiah chapter 3, about 9 principles, 9 concepts of building effective teams. But I want to review some of the work that we've done in the last session. In the last session, we talked about changing Sabbath school and how to develop an influence communication map. And it's so vital to communicate the right information at the right time and to the right people. Too often when we're managing change, we're too zealous and we try to communicate everything to everyone, and people get all worked up and they got all frazzled, and we're not communicating the right thing at the right time. The last session says if you read counsels on Sabbath school, Ellen White talks about the vision, talks about the purpose of Sabbath school, and that is why I got you to read about the church manual. The church manual has a chapter, a section on Sabbath school. The purpose is for scripture, the purpose for soul winning, right? And training our members. These purposes are clear in the church manual. And I hope you have read the church manual on this point, page 97 to 100. It's very clear. But how do you reform? How do you change? Do you have a vision to change your Sabbath school? Is it one of those that are just a dying service in the church where less and less people are coming? Can you make it really a teaching ministry of the church? When you have a clear vision, we start building an influence communication map in the church, and so we start working out how do we communicate to people the change that is required. Remember these steps that we talk about, the influence communication map. Be clear on God's vision. Pray with like-minded team. Maybe there are 2 or 3 others in Sabbath school that say, we can do better. We can do something different. Remember, praying with them is important. And then number 3, identifying key people for the change. Who are the people that make decisions in the church? Who are the ones that need to be involved and communicated with? And then personally know their concerns. Why is it they're holding it up? Why is it that they have not thought about this earlier? Maybe they just slipped their mind. Maybe they're too busy. Maybe they're not concerned. Maybe they are concerned, but they don't know how to. Right? Communicate right information, right people at the right time, and then let the Spirit move. Right? By having a map, an influence command map, we know we can look at it in our morning devotion, and we can pray for the individuals that involved in managing this change, or who are the stakeholders that need to be communicated with. So for example, in Sabbath school, if you make a change for Sabbath school, so in the influence communication map of a Sabbath school, it will look something like this. You'll be looking to find like-minded few that you can plan and pray together. They have the same burden and they're willing to pray. Start off with prayer. All right, there may be other influential member who's interested in the spiritual growth of the church. They influence in that. They have a vision for this change as well. But maybe they are retired, maybe they don't want to drive the change, but God has called you to drive the change. How do they help with this whole process? But if you look at the powers to be, you are the new Sabbath school coordinator, you notice that there are people that are already involved, perhaps that do not want to try this new change in Sabbath school. Just want to, because the person is just happy to maintain the roster. Because the change means a disruption in the roster. And they may disrupt other classes if you offer new classes that meet other needs. And so if you want to do a discipleship class like FAST, or maybe you want to introduce another needs-based class, they'll feel like, oh, how come, this is happening? So it's important to share with this leader the purpose of Sabbath school again and read things together from Spirit Prophecy to guide us. For a pastor, maybe some pastors just do not like to create disharmony in the church. Oh, why you want to reform the children class? Why do you want to reform the adult class? Sometimes they don't like the change, but some pastors maybe are okay with the change. But if they don't, then share with them the purpose of the change. You're not just trying to create disharmony. You're trying to lift up the spiritual life of the church. So ask how he could help. Maybe he could pray. Maybe he could be part of it. And then in the church board, you may have some board members that are Sabbath school impacts everybody. So some church board members are very concerned, and some board members are supportive and they're willing to help you. Some board members maybe not. They say, oh, how come you'll be doing this new curriculum? It's not the regular Sabbath school worldwide lesson. Why do we have to change? Why can't we have, everybody must use this lesson, but it's not meeting the needs of the church. Then you must offer different kind of classes, including the lesson and other classes. So what you're trying to share with them is to encourage more and more people to come back to Sabbath school. So, this is a very important process. A very important process is to be able to share with people that your change is for a good reason. Influence communication map. is something that is vital. So when you have a map like this, you know how to pray for the individual people. And you ask the Spirit of God, God, how do I communicate with these people? God, what is their main concern? How could I give them the right information at the right time to help them to understand that the change that we're making here is not just for the sake of change. We're trying to meet an objective, a vision. Some people don't like change, it's true. But sometimes we only rely on the formal way of communication, whether it be board or business meeting. But change means we need a lot of personal work. The influence communication map means we need to personally talk to people, hear them out, share their concerns. A lot of visitation is necessary to make this work. So I hope you had a go. Perhaps you had another issue you want to deal with, like I'm going to plant a new church. How do I transition from the mother church to the new church? How do we deal with that? It's vital to do an influence communication map so that you know how to pray for these people. So for me, sometimes when I'm trying to make a change in a church and it's a volunteer organization, I know that I can't go ahead of this work. It is the Spirit of God that can go ahead of this work. But by putting this picture in my mind and writing it out, I get to be able to pray for the different individuals that are part of the work. Sometimes you may think that they're obstacles, but really they're not. They're just lack of information. People don't intentionally go to church, try to trip you over and give you a hard time. I believe in my heart they're well intended, and we just need to work with them and to encourage them, let them see and communicate appropriately at the right time and the right place. So influence communication map, a very good tool, something that you may think about for some of the change you're trying in your church. Let me shift gears. Today I want to talk about another practical skills. This skill area has to do with resource allocation in the church. And we want to look at better resource allocation during nominating committee process in the local church. The nominating committee process is probably one of the most critical process in the church. You might be a new pastor coming to the church and you observe the problems in the church by the past leadership. You can't do anything about it because you come in the mid-year and the officers are already there. But nominating committee gives you an opportunity to see a change occur. I grew up in the Adventist church. Nominating committee is the time where I see most controversy. I see a lot of controversy. People are not re-elected as an elder. Oh, it creates quite a stir. Oh, this guy's been there for 15 years. How come he's not reappointed as an elder? And they have a sense of shame or embarrassment, or tag wasn't in place. So things like that do occur. And sometimes people feel like, oh, how come this person is appointed? I have an objection between the first and the second reading. So I grew up in a church where I see a lot of tension during this time. And I see this process needs to be enhanced. I'm not saying putting it away, this process. I believe we as a worldwide Seventh-day Adventist church has a good process with the selection committee and nominating committee. But how can we enhance this process to make it even better? Let me illustrate this point. Big picture. You see, as a leader, you have a clear Adventist identity. You are revived. You know why we are Adventists. And then there's a hope and urgency of our gospel message. You have the three angels message. God gives you the 3 Ps, the people group, the prayer, and the personal involvement. And with a multitude of counselors, you have a compelling vision and values. You want to move forward. You want to move forward in the church. However, that vision needs to translate to yearly plans. Because our church work on nominating committee cycle, sometimes 1 year, 2 years, but most churches is 1 year cycle. So how do we deal with this? You see, because this phase is the most critical. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. We've just written nice words about vision. How do we take that vision into a yearly implementation plan in the church? And that yearly implementation plan depends on the resource that's allocated to that. And most churches, the nominating committee process is not thinking strategically. Most nominating committee process is more about replacing the vacant roles. It's more of a maintenance culture rather than a visionary culture. So this becomes a problem. The bottleneck is this area. You see, leadership is about managing change. And one of the change I talked about in the earlier session is that leaders must allocate resource and repair broken processes. Maybe repair or fortify is the word. Enhance that process. We need to enhance this process. The roles in nominating committee, the staffing plan, the prioritization of initiatives. We need to communicate with the congregation, with the local conference, and we need prayer partners to make this work. So how do we change? How do we enhance this nominating committee process. You see, people are the most important and valuable asset of the church. The most important, better than any infrastructure you have in your church. But how do we link vision to plans? How do we make that work, that we put the right people in the right role at the right time? This is the heart of the question. Now, I've been thinking about this nominating committee process for a long time, and I realized this controversial thing has happened when I grew up in the church. And one of the things we needed to improve is this process. You see, traditionally it looks like this. It looks like this because at the end of the year, normally what you have traditionally is that you have a situation whereby at the end of the year, you have the selection committee, nominating committee, and then there are many meetings in the nominating committee, and they make many phone calls to get people to fill all the different roles, and then you do the first reading and second reading, and then hopefully by the new year, you have your officers. All right, this is traditionally what we do in nominating committee. But here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. There's no plans or direction for a nominating committee. They're just filling in the vacant roles. It's a maintenance culture. Number two, leaders involved last year may not carry into the new nominating committee, and the church direction may not carry through because key leaders are changed, because people are functioning on replacement and maintenance strategy. There's no or little input from the congregation on areas where they want to serve. Generally, you let the nominating committee, 5, 6, 7, how many people you have, they're the one that praying together, and it assumes that they know people well enough to reappoint or appoint them into the role. But people don't have a chance, the grassroots, the members don't have a chance to say where do they want to serve in the vision. Because most churches don't have a vision. They don't have a plan, so people don't know where to serve within the vision. So let's just replace the role and just keep running functionally one week after another. We need to change this. And the change that we have looked at that would be much more effective is to enhance this process. This yearly process needs to be aligned to the church vision and direction. One of the things we want to do, and we have introduced, and this has worked, is called the Leadership Prayer and Planning Retreat. I'm going to expand on that a bit more, but this is a time where we pray and we plan and we work our vision together. We have a clear people group, we have a clear vision statement, and we identify our values. It provides a long-term direction. It is a document, a direction that been voted at business meeting, and the members of the nominating committee is aware that this is the direction we want to go. So the next step is to have an annual general meeting, annual business meeting. This is before the selection committee. Have an annual business meeting whereby you can communicate the reports of last year, review last year, and also where we're going in the future. And in this meeting, we also take a survey, a serving together survey. I'll expand on that later. And then in the business meeting, we select the nominating committee. You see, too often, this nominating committee selection is done between Sabbath school and church. And it is rushed through because we are compressed between the two events, Sabbath school and church. And it's rushed through. It's not well thought through, yet it has a big implication on the church function the following year or the following years ahead. Put the wrong people in the wrong role, it can stifle, it can obstruct, it can slow down the work. Go away on a business meeting, explain the plan, explain the vision, call the right people into the nominating committee, do a survey of all the members about where they like to serve based on the plan. Accountability to the church at large so that they are aware of the plans. We have accountability to the church at large as leaders. They are aware. We need to socialize the vision, socialize the plan, and nominate the right people to go into the nominating committee. So here we have a leadership planning in September. And this is the important next step. And then this is followed by the annual church meeting, the annual business meeting or general meeting. And you communicate all the plans. And then from there, it makes sense to select the committees because you now know big picture where the church is going. And you've done a survey of all the members where they want to serve. And you present this in there to select the right nominating committee. And what you'll find is that it takes less time in the meeting. And then you can do your first reading and second reading fairly quickly. Serving together survey is also done in this business meeting or even online. We can do this online during the week and after we explain the vision, we want every member to complete this. Basically, it's simple, easy to complete. It's a checkbox. It can be done in 10 minutes, and it clearly indicates the different areas to serve. It's prepared by the leaders so that you know your plans, you know your vision, so you know what roles are necessary to make that work. You know, if we are changing the way we do church because of the direction of more digital cycle evangelism, then we need to have people who can deal with the digital evangelism. The new roles will need to come into play. Some roles need to shut down in the church. But that can only happen if we have a clear plan. Too often, most churches, all they do is that they take last year's officers list, they say who wants to serve, who doesn't want to serve, okay, let's fill this up, let's replace this. And it's not the strategic at all. It tends to be very much a maintenance culture. By taking a survey, we do a simple survey like this, you can see it's just checkbox. They can say, okay, I want to serve in this area, I'm happy to serve in that area as part of children's Sabbath school or worship, where I want to serve in. Just a checkbox. Now the point about this service is it does not guarantee that you're going to get that role. Do you notice that we don't put in that treasurer or elder? That is not something we put in there. We just say that these are the functional, these are the areas that you can serve that are related to the vision. And it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the role. The nominating committee will take this as input. They'll prayerfully consider who should be taking that role. So it's still following the process of the church manual. We're not circumventing that process, but at least we're providing good data to the nominating committee. Two powerful data. Number one, the plans, the vision, and number two, the area where the members want to serve. The third important data that can be provided to the nominating committee is what we call spiritual gifts. Now, if you go to Gateway website, gatewaysda.org, and click resources, one of the menus like resources, you'll be able to find, discover your spiritual gifts inventory. This is a very powerful tool for you to identify your spiritual gifts. And we have adapted this based on the Seventh-day Adventist Theology of Seventh-day Adventist Handbook of the list of spiritual gifts there. And you can get a report from the online, and you can see your gifts of wisdom, gifts of knowledge, gifts of faith. You can get to see after doing the survey what your potential gifts are. Of course, this is just an indication, and obviously your spiritual gifts must be affirmed by people who know you best, godly people that knows you best, and they have seen you serve in and or provide, share your talent, your gifts in that area. So use this as an indicator, but most importantly, where there are 2 or 3 witnesses, things are established, right? You have brothers and sisters that could help you establish that. So when you have a survey of the where people want to serve, you have a spiritual gift list of if they, again, people are open to sharing their gifts if they want to share that, but it's important for the people to know their own gifts. But if you have all this, the nominating committee has powerful data to help them to make decisions. If we don't have this data, it's very tough to be nominating committee. It got to a point in many churches that people say, oh no, don't appoint me on the nominating committee. That's a thankless job. You know, I have to make so many phone calls calling people, oh, would you take children ministry? Would you take children's Sabbath school? And people keep saying, oh no, I've been there for 10 years, 5 years. Or can you please get somebody else? Right? There's a lot of this rejection that you're going to get in serving in nominating committee. So whereas using this process, it enhances the process, and we have a huge benefit. We are aligning vision to yearly plans and yearly resourcing. Number 2, we're communicating to the whole church about our vision and direction. Number 3, members can serve where they have a passion, a burden, and they indicated it in the survey. We reduced the time for nominating committee meetings. In fact, we found in our church that reduced dramatically when we have these 2 powerful data input in terms of the plans and the vision and the people's area they want to serve. Very powerful. It cuts the iteration down quickly. And the database basically is like your skills database, your inventory database that you can keep year after year, and people have served in different areas as you go along. Isn't that amazing? Once you can pull all this together, the work can progress much effectively. People are the most powerful and important resource. If we don't deal with enhancing our nominating committee process, it's almost like a potluck every year, who's going to be in different roles. You can write all the most beautiful vision you want, but there's always a disconnect to the yearly plan because there's a disconnect with the wrong person in the wrong roles. It is so vital that people are clear on the roles and where to go. Some people ask me, what do you do with your leaders, a retreat, leadership retreat and prayer time? Well, this is an important step before the nominating committee. And what we do is this. It is a place where we develop and socialize our vision and values together. You know, the leader may have a vision, but it's important that there are 2 or 3 witnesses come and prayerfully look at this together. And by pulling the board members and some invitees, we go away on a weekend we provide pre-reading materials so they can read and be familiarized with the data and the issue of the church, maybe some spirit prophecy principles as well. They get an agenda, we have a clear deliverable, and their follow-up actions for the church board. Who should go there? Basically, we invite all the board members, and we also do invite their spouse. If your board is not too big, it's worthwhile bringing their spouse because they are a team working together. We recognize that not all board members will attend, not all board members will attend, and to ensure that key members are there though. You know who are your key members in your board. Please ensure that they could attend this retreat. The other thing is that we always invite 1 or 2 other people. You know, too often in the church, there are some people that are very influential who are doing really great work for the Lord, but they just say they don't like meetings. They don't like to be in board meetings. They say, oh, the board meeting runs too long. I'm not into meetings. But they are key to bring into a leadership retreat because they can provide great input to the direction of the church. Sometimes you may even get an external facilitator. I remember the first time we did it, we had the ministerial director of the conference to come and help to be the facilitator. And perhaps you know of other pastors or other people who have got gift in facilitating, in consulting, facilitating this process. Now, why is this important? It's time to pray. It's a time to ask God's leading. Time to be away in nature, to plan together. And it's time to build team spirit as well, to build bonding among the team members. Where do we do it? We try not to do it in the church. When we can do it in person, we try to do it away in an off-site location where the mind can open up, they could have a fresh look at the whole thing. And in our case, we want it to be funded by the church to encourage as many leaders as possible to go. And sometimes we choose a country location, a country home, or that we can go to. When do we do this? Often we do it after church in the afternoon. We start at 4 o'clock on Sabbath afternoon, and then we finish around 4 o'clock on Sunday or even midday on Sunday. If possible, try to do it once a year just to refresh and to look at the thing. We have pre-readings prepared ahead by the pastor or the facilitator or the elder, and this is to give all the leadership and all the participants something to read and get their mind focused in the same direction. It is also sometimes used to raise the temperature for change. It's raise the temperature for change. Remember we talked about that. Because if the house is not on fire, people don't want to change. So sometimes you need to give hard facts and hard data in the pre-reading. And they can start praying over it before they get together. Now, a lot of this stuff that I'm going to describe is actually in one of the documents that I've given to you in the folder called the Practical Leadership Planning Tools. There are tools that you can use for running leadership weekends. Some of the sample agendas are in there. So it talks about different things that you could run. And from Saturday, Sabbath day to Sunday, what you can run. And then we talk about some planning tools in there. These tools are like, because we work them in breakout groups. So normally if you have 15 people or 20 people there, we break them into groups of 5 and they will work on it together. Because we want to make sure that not only the vocal people have a say, but everyone in leadership has a say. So we give them worksheets of this nature, like the SI analysis. I don't believe in SWOT analysis because SWOT is a business thing. SWOT, as you know, is strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. And so I rather use what we call strengths and improvement analysis rather than SWOT analysis. I used to do SWOT analysis, but it deteriorated the conversation into very negative. So I don't like working down that path when we are working with groups. Ellen White said we should not utter discouragement. And she's very clear on that. So once we go down SWOT, that may lead down to that discussion. Whereas I like strengths and improvement analysis. So you can see the template here, the worksheets here allow you to do SI analysis for your group. And from there you can flesh out the values of your group. And then there's other things that help you to do, to socialize and communicate the vision and to wordsmith and write the vision and so on. So all these tools are there on this planning tool. You can take your time to read it. There's about 9-10 pages of tools, 9 different kind of tools for different things that you can do for your church. Then there are different steps you can take. We tend to do it such that everyone can contribute. When you do the breakout groups for discussion, we ask the group to have a representative to report back to the bigger group. So every time you work it through groups, they work in their groups and one person reports. So it's like 2 steps of learning, one in the groups, breakout group, and one in the overall group. So you are refining. Go for the 80-20 rule. You're trying to develop information here that is big picture where you're going. And the deliverable really is a 90-day plan. What are we going to do in the next 3 months? There's no point saying, oh, we're going to develop, we can set out our vision, but we need to know in the next 90 days where we're going. So it's vital that we do that. So do some research, get good data points, your baptismal data, retention data, your attendance data, your Sabbath school attendance data. Look at it the last 5 years, bring some good data to the group. Use some realistic case studies. Maybe you got successful case studies from other churches you can bring and share to the leadership, so it lifts their eyes to see new vision and new possibility. Use breakout groups, use reporting out together, fine-tune the reports, and then allocate a lot of time in prayer, because it's a prayer and planning retreat. So in the agenda you see lots of time is allocated to prayer. And finally, the deliverable is a planning document that the team will send to the board, and the board will keep working for it on the next 3 months after that. And some of the churches I've been doing this sort of work with have produced newsletters and bulletins. They've even produced their vision statement, their value statements. They've gone up to the website and so on. So it's very exciting when this all can be well put together. It sets a tone to the church that we have disciplined people with disciplined thought and disciplined action, and we're heading in a new direction, a new era for this church. Building effective teams is what we have covered, but next session is even more important. You don't want to miss that. It's talking about how to lovingly confront when Christians behave badly. You know, too often in the church, we have the vision and values lever, but yet we are all volunteer organization, and it's very hard to confront when things don't go well or people behave wrongly. How do you deal with that? We're going to learn a new tool to do that. I know we all know Matthew 18, but how do we apply that practically? How do we make that work? So work through your, you got an exercise before next session, is to work through your own church nominating committee process. Think about it again, how can you improve this? Because this is the most critical process to put the right people at the right time in the right place. Read the church manual. You can read a chapter on election, which talks about our governance model, about how we do a selection committee, nominating committee, who chairs that, and so on, some of the policies and governance regarding our church nominating committee process. And then you're going to watch training video number 4 and do lesson 4 before we meet again in the next session. Well, we covered a lot today about building effective teams. I know that you probably have lots of questions. I know that you probably have, your mind is ticking through and thinking, how could I make this change? And it's good that the Spirit of God can help you through that and bringing these thoughts to you. Let's discuss this. Let's work it through and see, how do we contextualize, how do we implement the things we discuss, and how do we put the right teams together so that the work of God can progress forward. Amen.